All right, welcome. If you're joining us, we're getting started in about 5 minutes. So just feel free to set your computer to the side or your device to the side. We did start it a little bit early so we can start right on time at 7 o'clock. So as you guys come in, grab a glass of water, grab a hot cocoa, grab some popcorn. You're in for a great show tonight. We can't wait to just involve you with all of the curriculum work that we're doing here at Pennoyer, but we're getting started in about 4 minutes. Thank you to those of you who are joining us. We are getting started in about 3 minutes, so make yourself comfortable. We're so happy that you're here joining us. I feel like, if I was in an auditorium, we'd have a chance to mingle. I can't see you, so I'm missing out on that. And I know this whole team is as well, but we will get started in just a couple of minutes. So join us. And we can't wait to take you on this journey with us through our curriculum updates and our connections to the high school tonight. So thank you for being here. All right, for those of you who are joining us, we are getting started in just a minute. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for patience as we get started. I wish I had some great jokes to entertain you with. I don't really have any great jokes tonight, but I can tell you, the weather tonight was definitely not a joke, and I hope you're all safe and at home and comfortable and out of the rain. And if you are joining us from the rain, well, that is just amazing. We're so appreciative for you. We're going to give it just another minute to let a few more attendees sign on, but we appreciate you being here right at 7 o'clock tonight. We'll give it just one more minute and then we'll get started. Thank you. I'm sure no one's missing the discomfort of sitting in an auditorium. I'm hoping that we're all enjoying that we could be at home. I know if this was me as a parent, I'd be picking the most comfortable spot in my home to sit and enjoy this. So we're appreciative that you're here. All right, well, welcome to our evening informational session for parents. We are going to go ahead and get started. I'm happy to share that we are recording this session. So you know, if you have to step away for a moment at any part and you miss something that you want to come back to, we will be posting this recording to our YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to share a link to it in my newsletter next week. So, you know, hang tight. And if you know of, you know, a friend or a neighbor who wanted to be here tonight, but just couldn't for whatever reason, let them know that we are going to post the recording as well as the link to our presentation for ease of access. So welcome tonight. Here with me today is a wonderful team from Pennoyer and Maine Township. We're looking forward to sharing some curriculum updates and then introducing standards-based grading and what it means for your children this school year. So to get started, I'm gonna put it out there for some introductions. I'm gonna let the team introduce themselves. Ooh, it looks like there might be a glitch in the system. We can't.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kopta. I am the superintendent of Pennoyer School District. Welcome, everyone.
And I'm Alia Ibrahim. You guys know me, principal over at the school.
Hi, I'm Alicia Schmeiser. I'm the Director of Student Services at Pennoyer.
Hi, I'm Melissa Tronco. I'm the English Language Arts Department Chair as well as the Reading Specialist.
Hi, my name is Kira Strecker. I am the Math Department Chair and a first grade teacher.
Hi, I'm Willie Medueno. I am the Science Department Chair and I'm the middle school teacher.
Good evening. I'm Julia Peters. I am Social Studies Department Chair and Middle School Social Studies Teacher.
Hi, I'm Megan McManus. I'm the Fine Arts Department Chair and one of the physical education teachers at Pennoyer.
Hi, I'm Kay Malusa. I am the special education teacher at Pennoyer School and the Student Services Department Chair.
We are joined by a special guest tonight. You know, I'm not sure if this webinar setting is messing with our ability to hear, but we did not.
Sean, I think you're muted.
No, I'm just muted. You would think after months of doing this that I would know what I'm doing, but obviously I don't. So I'm Sean Mesmer. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Innovation in District 207. Just delighted to be here tonight and to talk about standards-based grading and support Pennoyer's move and journey towards standards-based grading, and to help parents understand what that means for their child as they move to District 207.
Great, thank you. And as we go into our session today, we will have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. We can't see you, so if you have a question at any time, feel free to put it into the Q&A box. We will address questions at the end. And then if there are any specific, very specific questions that are more appropriately addressed, we'll reach out to you personally if they're more of a personal nature. So that Q&A box is going to be open throughout the presentation. And we will open the floor for questions at the end of the presentation tonight. So thank you for being with us. And let's get started. So we're going to begin with some updates on the curriculum as it relates to all of the content areas at Pennoyer. Just to get things started though, on a general note, we over the last school year, we generated a new strategic plan for 2020 through 2025, and all of the work that we're presenting on tonight relates to our student growth and achievement goal within the strategic plan. And we're continuing to strive to ensure growth for all of our students and shift towards a more personalized learning environment for our students. So in our curriculum development work, we are continuing to implement the curriculum that we are writing locally at Pennoyer with fidelity, implement, high impact and quality curriculum maps, aligning to the Common Core standards, and having our teachers report out to our families students' progress as it aligns to learning outcomes and components. So we're pushing our staff and we're pushing our instructional team to continue to meet our students where they are and provide them differentiated experiences that will hopefully work towards growing them at a quicker and more adequate rate than that teaching to the average. So all of our work is aligned to the long-range plan that was adopted in the 2017-2018 year. We will talk about where we are on the long-range plan as it relates to all of the content areas as we go through the presentation tonight. Right now, you can see I've outlined the year that we are in. Despite the pandemic and despite some of the slowdowns that we had last year when we shut down, we have not slowed down with our curriculum work, because curriculum is ever growing, and curriculum it's our students' instruction. And we feel that it is very important to continue to do this work and stay on target with the long range plan, so that we can give our students the best experiences possible and continue to personalize instruction for them. So I'm going to hand it over to Willie, who's going to talk to us a little bit about where we are with science curriculum development.
Hi. So science was the first content area to get started in this curriculum writing process, and that was pretty exciting. And we started that 4 years ago. So here's our science mission. Our science area committee got together, and we went through this curriculum writing process, and we came up with this mission. And this first point, Pennoyer students will explore the interconnected nature of all the different sciences. And that's a big push, because we really wanted to make sure that students see that science is connecting all aspects of life. It's not just you learn this one unit and then that's it. It's so much more than that. And we also wanted to relate those classroom experiences to real world situations. And so, yeah. And here we are in the long range plan. We're in the 4th year, and this within this year, we are validating those assessments we've written last year. And we can move on to the next slide. And this is kind of the direction we're headed. So the curriculum writing process has been a 5-year cycle. Science is coming to the end of that cycle. And so this year we are validating some of the all of the assessments that we've written. And what that kind of entails is that the teachers are checking the accuracy of the assessments that have been previously written for those unit outcomes. And so next year, we are just implementing the full curriculum with all of those aspects all together. And then the next year, we go into a revision process. We're back at the beginning, where we take a look at what we've written and see if that still aligns with where we're at in science. Now, science, again, we were the first ones to start writing the curriculum, and now we get to pioneer this standards-based grading system, and we're transitioning to this. It is evolving over time, and as more content areas get added and start transitioning to this process, those expectations will become a lot smoother and more clear to both students and parents. There will be more detail later on in the presentation, so look forward to the philosophy and policy and some examples. Thank you. I think you're on mute. And I will pass it off to Melissa Tronco for ELA.
Thanks, Willie. Okay, our English Language Arts Department, we refer to as ELA, And we developed this curriculum with the Curriculum Leadership Institute, CLI, and our in-house ELA subject area committee, and that's representative of ELA grade band teachers as well as our administrators. So this ELA program has been created with students in the forefront of all of our decision making. Our integrated curriculum focuses on reading, writing, language, speaking, listening, and viewing. So through this curriculum, students will be able to demonstrate foundational skills, comprehend complex text, evaluate and analyze a validity of sources, utilize differentiated opportunities for a variety of purposes and audiences, apply technology and digital media with purpose. And I feel that we're doing that every day now, cross-curricular, and being responsible and successful members of our world. So these are our highlight goals. ELA encompasses so much, and it is cross-curricular. And our goal really is to prioritize components and assessments this year within our curriculum to help address the specific needs within our classroom. And our ELA curriculum is actually located on our website for you to check out. If you go under the district tab, you'll be able to see our K through 8 curriculum. Okay, following up with the long range plan, as Willie was talking about science. For this current 2021 school year, teachers are going to be developing common outcome assessments, as well as we will be researching the best resources, as well as having teacher pilot these resources that we can align to our current curriculum. And we are so proud of our curriculum. So we really want to find something that can complement everything that we're already doing in the classroom. And next school year, in the 21-22 school year, we'll be implementing and validating the new assessments that we are writing this year. Thanks. Now to Kara Strecker. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Mhm.
So last year, a committee of Pennoyer teachers came together to write our math curriculum. By unpacking the Common Core standards and standards for mathematical practice, we wrote a rigorous curriculum that is vertically aligned to standards throughout the building. So our math curriculum kind of follows a story from all the way from kindergarten all the way till 8th grade and leading into high school math. We've developed a curriculum that empowers our students and connects mathematical concepts to real world contexts. So this year we are implementing our math curriculum. And if you go to the next slide, you will see where math is in relation to our long range plan. So this is our validating curriculum year. Teachers are implementing the curriculum with their students. And as they're doing that, they're checking for alignment to standards, cohesiveness, and how the curriculum relates to the needs of their students. So at the end of this school year, the math team will make any necessary edits to the curriculum based off of the feedback of our teachers, and then it'll go to the Board of Education for approval. And then next year, the math curriculum will move towards where ELA currently is, and we will begin writing our common outcome assessments and choosing a resource that helps support our curriculum.
And now for social studies. We are inspiring students to learn through their inquiry. So getting them to ask good questions that lead to content knowledge, skills, and understanding so that they become better students, better citizens, and better leaders. This year, we're setting the foundation through our state standards to build our Pennoyer curriculum, creating a comprehensive student experience from kindergarten through 8th grade. This is the 2021 school year, so we are just writing our curriculum, and that entails translating standards to design a curriculum that creates a full and meaningful experience from our younger student learners all the way through 8th grade. Next year, we will implement and affirm that the newly developed curriculum aligns with the standards. 2023, when we align assessments to the curriculum, we want to We want teachers and students to know where these students are along their journey and mastering the content. And then 23-24 is assessment validation, where we are ensuring that we are assessing students appropriately and with fidelity. And now for Mrs. McManus.
So the Fine Arts Department includes music, art, physical education, and health. As a department, we aspire to provide a well-rounded, engaging, and enriching educational experience for all students at Pennoyer. So this year, using our national and state standards, we'll be working to build a comprehensive curriculum in all 4 of those content areas. So in relation to the long range plan, we are similar to social studies where we're right at the beginning. We will be writing our curriculum this year. So looking forward at each department, what that looks like. For physical education and health, in previous years in the past, it has more been focused on the learning of sports and games, whereas now we want to be more focused on overall wellness and how to achieve long-term mental, emotional, and physical health. Through the curriculum writing process, we are going to build a comprehensive experience for students K through 8th using the Illinois state standards for physical education and health. Our art department is going to be building their curriculum using the Illinois visual arts standards, as well as taking into account the aspects of 2 different art education philosophies. The first philosophy is a content-rich, discipline-based art education philosophy, which focuses on specific skills and processes when it comes to creating art, while the second philosophy, which is teaching for artistic behavior, holds choice-based learning to a high standard. This approach gives students a range of creative freedom when it comes to art projects and often helps students find their own voice in art from an early age. As for our music department, their curriculum will be guided by the 4 concept areas of the National Music Standards, which are connecting, performing, creating, and responding. And as always, Ms. Govertson's philosophy of music education aligns with that of ORF, which is sing, say, dance, and play. When developing those different concept areas, each grade level will focus on specific topics, including melody, rhythm, theory and form, harmony, instruments, movement, and history. So moving forward, after writing the curriculum this year in school year 21-22, we will be implementing and validating the curriculum that has been written. In 22-23, we will be developing assessments, and in 23-24, we will be in the assessment validation process. I will go ahead and hand it off to Mrs. Malusa.
Hi, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to explain how Student Services is involved in the curricula alignment for students with individual educational programs. So we also, as a department, are involved in this curricula alignment. However, it is for students who are eligible for IEPs, and the eligibility determination has to be met by a certain criteria. And once a student is found to be eligible by a special education team and a multidisciplinary team, we establish an IEP as a team. And this team develops the IEP that states the special education instruction, supports, and services. And we are in the process of doing curricular alignment and focusing on aligning goals to the Common Core state standards in conjunction with the dynamic learning maps essential elements. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Alicia Smyser, who is the Director of Student Services, and she will share this process. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay, for that nice introduction. So as any parents of a child with a IEP, one of the things that they've been exposed to or know is that all of the goals that we write for students have to be aligned to a standard. So if we're writing a goal in the area of English language arts, we have to make sure that that goal aligns to a specific standard. Now, for some students, we also make that goal aligned to the essential element, depending on wherever that child is currently at. So one of the things that we're trying to do is unpack and make sure that we have an alignment between standards, the Common Core standards, and then the essential element standards. So one of the things that we started doing this year, knowing that science was going to be our first piece that we're rolling out in terms of assessment, we started with science as well. So this is our process in terms of unpacking what the standard is, what the Common Core and GSS science standard is, and then finding which standard in the essential elements standard aligns with it, what makes the most sense. From there, then we try to see, okay, for the student, what is it that we want them to take away? A part of our process is making sure that it's written in student-friendly language with our students at the center, because obviously it's really great that we can describe these high-level standards, but what does it mean for students? And then after we've gone through this process, the next step and the final step for us would be developing different feedback for parents to know where they are, where students are along that journey. Are students making progress in the way we would expect? Do they need more support? And so we started with science this year and are trying to make sure that we can incorporate that in what we're doing as well.
Great, thank you, Ms. Schmeiser. I struggled to find my microphone there for a minute. So as we continue our curriculum development work, one of the big things that we're excited to do is transition to standards-based grading. And we are taking a slow approach to transitioning to standards-based grading. As you heard Mr. Medueno talk about a little bit earlier today in the presentation, we're starting with science. And I'll revisit with the long-range plan what this looks like for the rest of our curricular areas. But we wanted to provide parents today an introduction to standards-based grading, a little bit of a slice of insight into where our minds are philosophically with this transition and what it'll mean for your children and the type of feedback you receive whenever you're looking at your children's grade reports. And I think as we go through this, you'll find that this transition that we're making is in the best interest for students and for talking about learning. So why shift to standards-based grading? Well, the first question we ask ourselves when we make this transition is, what isn't a grade? When we look at the traditional grade and you look at a traditional grade report, what is in that grade that you receive? And oftentimes when we look at a grade, we look for feedback. That number, right, is a documentation of student achievement. It's a documentation of academic performance. It's a numerical value assigned to achievement. It can mean a lot of things. And when we all look at grades, we all think of different things whenever we think of what the grade actually means. But in reality, we know that a grade should provide documentation of where the student is along the learning pathway. So when we think about our grades as they are in the traditional standpoint, and we ask that same question, what's in a grade? So I know many of you that are here with us today, you are avid, you're avid attendees of our Skyward platform. You're looking at your children's grades. I know I have a little one, he's in kindergarten and I check Skyward like I'm gonna find grades, but then I remember he's in kindergarten. So I know that foreshadows a very interesting future for my son. And when I look at grade reports, right, and I see a student, take a look at this example on this slide, and I see the grade that they might be receiving in social studies, for example. And I can see a quiz grade, I can see a journal grade, an assignment, an assessment, a hero paragraph. I can see some miscellaneous items that might affect that grade, and then I see a final grade. Well, if I'm just looking at that final grade, you can see student A and student B both performed at the same level. So I ask the question again, what's in a grade? And if I can see the breakdown of what's in the grade, I can say, maybe student A struggles a little bit on assessments. over student B. And, looking at the student, I can say whatever was happening in week 3, student A struggled a little bit over student B. And that hero paragraph, whatever went into that, well, student A knocked that one out of the ballpark. But do I really have, just by looking at this right here, do I have a clear picture of academic achievement and where this student is along the continuum of learning? For us, whenever we look at these numbers, I would say just as a reporting piece, we don't have that. We don't have that clear vision for where this student is academically in social studies. Now, are there rubrics that might have been provided? Absolutely. Or is there written feedback that might have been provided? For sure. But that number grade isn't indicative to the next teacher who might be looking at this grade, or a professional onlooker looking into this grade. It's not indicative of where the student is academically in social studies. So we talk about the shift to standards-based grading and how it relates to Pennoyer. At Pennoyer, and I will talk a little bit about the development team, but at Pennoyer, we do have a standards-based grading policy development team. And that policy development team has determined that we would like our grading scale to indicate the 3, 2, 1 that you see on the screen here, with 3 being mastered, 2 being approaching, and 1, I apologize for that typo there, being emerging. So what does that all mean in the grand scheme of things? It means that when we provide a standards-based grading report, no longer will you see assignments listed, but you'll see outcomes, learning outcomes, steadfast learning outcomes for the students that share with you academically what it is we're testing upon. And, I know we're going to do questions and answers later on in the presentation, but someone earlier asked about fidelity and asked about how we wrote our local curriculum. Well, our local curricula in science, for example, was aligned to NGSS, and our local curricula in ELA and math both aligned to the Common Core. And as we continue to write our curricula, we are aligning to national standards. So our outcomes and our components that will be on our standards-based grading reports will be aligned to national standards. And how important is it whenever you're reading your child's report card, how important is it to see that your child has mastered the ability to observe, describe, and predict the patterns of movement of objects in the sky? Or maybe they're approaching or emerging, but at the end of the term, when you receive that report and along the pathway as we are reporting student grades, you are going to truly be able to see academically where your child is in the grand scheme of the learning continuum. And that was the big win for Pennoyer whenever we said, why do we want to move to standards-based grading? So what exactly is standards-based grading, right? You would think with that long-winded slide that I just went through, I would have already answered that question. But standards-based grading measures a student's mastery of the grade level standards as outlined by local curricula and the Common Core state standards. It allows parents and teachers to better understand the child's academic strengths and target specific areas that may need additional support. So when you receive that standards-based grading report, it's going to be a little bit long because you're going to see the list of standards that are the expected learning outcomes for the child by the end of the term. And you're going to see what their progress is towards mastery of those standards. And that in and of itself allows you to say, when you're asking the teacher, what should I focus on when I'm helping my child at home? Well, a great starting place is that report. And then we can shift the question from what should I focus on to how can I support? What resources do you have? Or, you're providing me these resources. How can I use them to continue to support, to grow my child and support you in your work with my child? So what are the benefits of SBG, or standards-based grading? It's accurate, it's more meaningful, it's a consistent measure. As we're developing our assessments, we're also developing rubrics that will be used across the grade level. So, if Ms. Strecker is grading and Ms. Barzano are grading, they're using the same rubric for the same common assessment. so that the expectation for learning is the same across all classes and every grade level. Parents can expect a meaningful grade report, seeing a clear picture of what their child has mastered or not mastered or is on the way to mastery. It does support learning by focusing on concepts and skills that have or have not been learned. So, when you're looking at that grade report, no longer are you seeing that they scored an F on assignment 3, but you are seeing the breakdown of what went into the assignments, and you now have a clearer picture for which learning outcomes they may have struggled with, or maybe on the emergent part of the pathway to mastery of that standard. So I am going to pass it back to Mr. Medueno, who will talk a little bit about what these reports will look like and what it means in science as we're pioneering. We don't want to use the word piloting. We're pioneering with science this school year.
And I like the way you say that, because pioneering is you're moving forward and doing something brand new and breaking ground. And I like that phrasing. So the example we have here is from our first grade teacher, Kara Strecker, our fellow math department head, and she's also on the SAC, the Science Area Committee, who helped to develop this science curriculum for the school. And so there are two basic parts to the curriculum. You have the outcomes, which are the objective for that particular unit, and they're supported, that outcome is supported by components. And those are those details that the teachers need to teach in order for those students to achieve that outcome. And so in first grade, we have 4 outcomes for the year. Now at Pennoyer, we teach science all year long, but it's written as a half-year curriculum, and all of the standards within that grade band are addressed throughout K to 8. And it's written as a spiral curriculum as well. So we interact with all the life and space and earth sciences and physical and chemical aspects of science as we go through the curriculum, and from year to year, so we can build on the knowledge that the previous year has given them. So so we have the outcomes here, and those are listed. Now the next slide, we have a breakdown of what it will look like on the report card. And as you see in the pink and the orange and the green above, those are learning behaviors, which can help to address the reasons why maybe they're only at emerging or why they're at approaching. Because if they're not on task or they're not using their materials appropriately, that can affect how they're interacting with that lesson for the day. So it does inform a little bit more on how they're doing within that particular unit. And as you can see in the purple, you go into each outcome, and those outcomes are taught at different times during the year sometimes, because it just makes sense. Like if you're teaching about flowers, it just makes sense to teach it in the springtime as opposed to in the winter when Chicago is flourishing, right? So so there's a breakdown there within that outcome to help support the rationale that they've mastered this outcome. And you can see that, maybe you can, it's kind of small, but the components are all addressed in some way through that teaching of the unit, through that outcome, like the sound lab, that has something to do with sound and teaching sound. And so what they've done is either diagrammed or modeled or explained in some kind of way how that sound helps to achieve that skill in that outcome.
So Alia, if you could go back to the previous slide. So when it's report card time at the end of the trimester, this is like the official report that you'll see as parents on Skyward. So at the top of the report card area for science are those learning behaviors that Mr. Medueno was talking about. Those learning behaviors definitely support the academic areas. They're not punitive in any way. It's more of a communication piece. for targeted learning behaviors that would occur in science. At the bottom of this report are the outcomes. So in first grade, there's 4 outcomes. In other grades, there's different amount of outcomes. And as you can see on the right, there is a grade in regards to the mastery of that outcome. So that'll be on a 3 to 1 scale, 3 being mastered, 2 being approaching mastery, and a 1 being emerging mastery. There's also a chance that you will see an NA, and that just means that that grade's not applicable at that time. So if we think of standards-based grading in terms of a pathway to mastery, obviously a student's not going to master all of the topics by the end of the first trimester. School isn't just 1 trimester long. Our trimesters are the opportunity that we have to report our grades in relation to the mastery. So these outcomes are end of grade level expectations. So it's very possible that you'll see 2s on your child's report card at the end of trimester 1. And that's okay because they're only 12 weeks into school. And then on the next slide, when you go into Skyward on the parents view, that is what you'll see if you, and it has like a further breakdown of more of the activities and the learning behaviors and what exactly goes into those learning behavior grades.
So in developing the standards-based grading policy, which we will share more of, as we continue to move towards adoption of the standards-based grading policy, I'd like to reiterate what Ms. Strecker and Mr. Medwenio have said, in that we are truly seeking to report out true learning, our students' true learning. So I know I heard both of them speak about learning behaviors. One of the things that we truly wanted to remove, and I'm going to jump back a couple of slides here. One of the things that we wanted to remove from the grade, and we've been doing for the last few years, is that miscellaneous, right? That doesn't really show you what your children have learned. It just shows the learning behaviors that may affect the true end outcome of their true grade. And it's important information to have, in that, are their learning behaviors appropriate to support their success, or are their learning behaviors maybe not where they should be and they're academically where they are, but maybe we need to keep a lookout on that because we don't want that to catch up to them in the future. Or maybe their learning behaviors really are truly affecting their performance academically in the class. And we felt that standards-based grading, once again, it allows us to give parents a more thorough view of where their students are in the learning continuum for the school year. As we progress through this segment of the presentation, a little bit of a timeline for what our adoption of standards-based grading is going to look like. For the 2021 school year, which is this school year right now, we are going to be implementing in science. Tonight, we have this parent informational night where we are introducing standards-based grading. On November 19th, our curriculum coordinating council, they will come together to review our draft, which has already been reviewed by the staff at the building. We do have parent representation on that team. We do have, we have board representation on the team. Mr. Messmer is a part of that team. So it's a pretty comprehensive team of, of individuals and stakeholders who are invested in ensuring that our students succeed not only at Pennoyer, but in high school and beyond as well. In December, our policy will officially be presented to the board for approval with the plan to continue adopting an ELA, followed by math, and then followed by social studies, PE, and art and music. So we are looking at adopting each year another curricular area, adopting the standards-based grading, and then with that third year out being the year that PE, art and music, our fine arts department, as well as social studies all adopt at the same time. So, that's a little bit of an insight into the work that we've been doing. And I can tell you that we plan to continue the transparent communication with families, as well as learning opportunities so that we can answer, I'm seeing the Q&A screen just blow up with questions. but which we appreciate. And we plan to continue informing our families because this is a big shift. And it's not the way that grades were for any of us, I can fairly say, on the screen here today, or those of you on the attendee list. It's not how we were all graded. It's not what we're used to. But it's a big, important shift for our students because it allows us to have targeted focus on academic areas of growth. So as we move forward, I know some of you are here and really eager to hear how this all connects to the high school. Once again, I'm happy to pass it over to Mr. Messmer, who will talk to us about what the connection is to the work at the high school.
Thank you, Alia. And if you want to go on to that next slide there. One of the things that I will say is that standards-based grading is something that we truly appreciate that our partner districts are moving towards. It really does help us know more about your individual child, more than an A, B, a C, or a D. I think it was presented very well tonight that what's in an A is really a big question. What's in a B, what's in a C? And so as a district, District 207 has been moving away from that designation as well. Now, one of the things that the reason the questions about the high school come up is because at the high school, we have questions about the college, right? And that's natural for a parent to be wondering, how does all of this fit together? Because the last thing I want to do is see my kids in some way, shape, or form be hurt by a move towards standards-based grading. And in fact, we're actually seeing quite the opposite. And so Pennoyer is a unique school district in that the two high schools that students feed into, both Ridgewood and Maine South, are schools that are in the competency-based pilot. And one of the things that competency-based education requires is really that you start to look at things through that lens of a competency-based grade and a standards-based grade. And I can get into the weeds on what the difference between the two are. But I think it's simply summed up as you can have standards-based education without competency, but you can't have competency-based education without standards-based grading. And so as our students at Pennoyer start to filter up into the high school, they're really getting a leg up on the system that the high school is evolving towards to really help us determine what students know and can do, which is really the purpose of the grade. So Ali, if you want to go to the next slide. A couple of the powerful parts about standards-based grading, and you saw it a little bit in the as Pennoyer kind of goes through the process of figuring out what the grade report will look like, is that it really does tell us much more about your student. And so knowing specifically what your child has mastered and done well with can eliminate things like the need for placement tests. It really does highlight the strengths of your Ridge, for example, has been on a 4-point scale now for years. St. Paul the Cross utilizes a 4-point standard scale.
Hey, Sean, I'm sorry to disrupt. You froze there for a minute. So,
sorry. What was the last thing you heard?
So you had left off at it really highlights.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop my video because sometimes that does help the sound. So you don't need to look at me anyway. So one of the things that standards-based grading does is it does really highlight the strengths of your child for placement purposes, but it also helps us identify if there are needs so that we can really personalize how we decide to support your child as they rise to the high school. And we really have encouraged all of our elementary partners to move towards standards-based grading. And something you might not be aware of is that both St. Paul, the Cross, and District 63, both in Park Ridge, have moved in this direction. District 62, for example, is having a very similar conversation that Pennoyer is having. And so I've tried to be part of those conversations, just like the conversation tonight, because we really do feel it tells us so much more about your child than the traditional grading system. So Ali, if you want to move to the next slide. So what are we doing at the high school, just so you're aware? We began a standards-based grading pilot in 2018 and 19. We currently have 30 courses that utilize a standards-based grading model. If your child happens to end up having Math 1 at Pennoyer, all of our math sequencing, which we've changed to an integrated math model, uses a competency-based system, which is very similar to a standards-based system. And so the uniqueness of an approach like this is that a test may test a student on all three of our competencies, and a student actually gets 3 different grades as a result of taking one test, because where they may be strong in some areas, they may need support in others. And that's really how we are looking to make sure that all of our students reach a high level of achievement. And one of the things that we are doing at the high school, which might be a little bit different than where ultimately it lands at Pennoyer, which is fine, by the way. It does not cause us.
Oh, Sean, you cut out again right as you were sharing. You were just sharing some connections to Pennoyer and ultimately where they will support our students at the high school. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Did I freeze?
You did freeze.
I'm sorry. My home connection is not great tonight. I apologize. The weather hasn't helped. But I'll say that we do convert back to a letter grade. And we do that because the colleges want to see a GPA. And so we will take an average, for example, of our 3 competencies in math to come up with a
Sean, you cut out again. You were talking about competencies in math.
Sorry.
No worries, you're coming back now. You were talking to us about competencies in math.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not a problem at all that Pennoyer produces a number grade versus a letter grade. So that, that will help us with placement related to what standards the student is being successful on. So that's not a problem. And I was just mentioning that we do turn our grade into a letter grade and a GPA for the purposes of college acceptance. So this is actually very seamless and transferable, although the numbers and lettering may seem different. So I just want to reassure parents that that's not an issue.
Thank you.
And I'll just say that I am available anytime for questions. Feel free to email me. I know I've been breaking up here, so if something wasn't clear, I'd be happy to follow up with any parent who has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Messmer. And then Dr. Kapta, I am going to pass it to you.
So before we go ahead and answer the questions, I just want to thank everyone tonight for attending. A special, huge thank you to our teachers. Our teachers and our administrators have just worked tirelessly over these past 4 years, pre-pandemic, and now we're in the pandemic, really working on curriculum, diving deep into the standards, because the basis of all this curriculum work are our national standards. And writing curriculum that's thoughtful for our school district, collaborating with our 2 high school districts, and ensuring that our kids are getting really the most high quality, the best curriculum they can get. I also want to thank, I know Sean's still on, and as he said, if you have questions, shoot him an email. He's been a great resource and a great friend to Pennoyer. He's really a huge integral part of our CCC as we look at curriculum, as we talk about developing a different, the standards-based grading system. He's been along with us that whole way. So we're very fortunate to have him. And our Board of Education that really supports this work. This has been a lot of work for our teachers and our faculty. And, it's not just during the school day. Our teachers are working after school and in the summers to produce this work. And the board has been so supportive of it. And I just want to thank them as well. It's been an awesome process. And as you saw on the slides in the beginning, this is ongoing. This is never ending because standards change, curriculum changes. And, it's always going to be a conversation with our 2 high schools on how we're preparing our students, not just for today, but tomorrow. So I just want to thank everyone. We're going to go ahead and answer questions now. And as Mrs. Ibrahim stated in the beginning, should you have a question that comes up later, feel free to email us or give us a call. This is going to be an ongoing process for the next few years and ever changing. And our curriculum, I do want to mention that we do have a curriculum tab specific on our website. Please feel free to check that out. I believe we have science and ELA up. Math may be coming up soon. We're still working on that portion, but it will give you an opportunity to see what your children are working on in the grade levels and then what's to come.
We also, on our curriculum section of our website, we also have some really great resources about standards-based grading, including some research articles that helped inform us in our decisions and drafting our grading policy as well.
Thank you, Kira. Thank you.
I was just going to say on the science curriculum, it's linked to the NGSS website as well. So every component is tied specifically to a standard in the NGSS.
Wonderful. Thank you. And it is really helpful to know where all the standards are on the curriculum website or the curriculum tab of our website. So please make sure you take some time to navigate over there, because as we do start to produce the science standards-based grading report for this first trimester, and then moving forward in the years to come, it is so helpful to be able to reference our standards as written for Pennoyer in referencing the grade report to better understand the summary report that you are receiving. So we're going to jump into Q&A. I'm going to tackle a few of the questions, and then the team will jump in with some responses as well. The first question is regarding all outcomes being developed by teachers in-house and how they compare to the nationally normed assessments. We develop all of our curricula with consultation with the Curriculum Leaders Institute. This is a nationally accredited institution that works with school districts. Dr. Kopta, if you want to jump in here with some of the historical work with CLI that we've done as well. But we've been working with Ms. Stacy Bruton, who consults with different school districts in writing curricula that is aligned to national standards. Dr. Kopta, if you'd like to add to that.
So 5 years ago, we did start our process of looking at where we were at with our curriculum, what we needed to revise, what kind of cycle. We did several visits to different area school districts that were using different consultants or different models. Because we're so small and we don't have a director of curriculum and we don't have an in-house curriculum superintendent, so we decided to work with the Curriculum Leadership Institute. They do have a consultant. It is an accredited institution. They have a consultant that works directly with and supports Pennoyer School. They do facilitate our curriculum council, which is members of teachers, parents, board members, and Mr. Messmer is on that as well. So we looked at that about 5 years ago and then decided that they would be the ones that would help us on this curriculum journey. And we really liked the way that they took curriculum that it was involved the teachers, and it really broke down the different standards, and teachers were involved in the curriculum writing, which makes the most sense because they're the ones who are ultimately teaching it to our students. There is our principal is involved very much in this process, our administration. And then of course, it goes through the CCC, which again is our constituents, and then approved by the board. So there's a lot of layers to this. It's a huge process. The teachers do teach the curriculum after they write it, they revise it. It's a long process, but as we go through these years, we're finding that we're constantly revising, we're choosing materials that best meet the needs of our students, and that we're able to do that differentiated instruction around the standards. There was a question earlier about fidelity. We have now put a place where we are organized with our curriculum. Teachers all have access to it. So, it might have been before where people, a fourth grade teacher really enjoyed teaching weather, and that might have been a fourth grade lesson, but maybe it wasn't a fourth grade standard. So now, our teachers from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade can see that scope and sequence and be able to know exactly when students are learning things and when they're being introduced and when it's time for mastery.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kopta. I think this segues really nicely to one of the questions that was asked about the CCC team and having experience writing these types of standards. Why don't we jump on that question as well as a nice segue?
Sure. So the CCC does not write the curriculum. It does not write the standards or the rubrics or the assessments. That's the overlying committee that really reviews the work of the teachers and looks at different standards within the curriculum and has that lens of not only teachers and administrators, but parents. We do have a couple of parents on there and board members. So it's a checks and balance before we then go ahead and bring that to the board for approval. Great. So that again is facilitated by our consultant from the Curriculum Leadership Institute.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Strucker, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about halfway marks being considered in the standards-based grading report. I know you were heavily involved last year in this work and developing the standards-based grading report card, and I really would love to hear you speak to that.
Sure. So the end goal for all of our students is mastery. So these grade marks help give us a picture where that student is in regards to mastery. Is their mastery just now emerging? Are they approaching that mastery, or have they mastered that concept? So as a team, the Curriculum Coordinating Council felt that it would be best to just have those solid numbers because the end goal is mastery. There wouldn't be like in between of emerging and approaching. And all of these grades are really thought out and supported by what the students are doing in the classroom in regards to the components and outcomes of the curriculum.
Great. And one of the things that was one of the questions on here that I would say is a great follow-up to that question, what's going to constitute a passing grade for each subject under standards-based grading? As we presented before, our scale will be a 1, 2, 3, where 3 is mastery, and that is the expected, that's what's considered passing at grade level for the particular outcome that is being assessed. One of the things that sometimes you see on a standards-based grading report is the 4, which is the exceeds expectations. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we really reinforced with our faculty is that once students have mastered, the idea that we continue to enrich our students. So we continue to move beyond mastery, but understanding that the expectation is mastery. And that you can enrich to no end, right? You can continue to dive deeper and deeper into content and understand it at greater levels and greater depths, and then become more targeted in your focus. And, I strive one day to get a doctorate and, do some targeted research. And for me, that would be the epitome of enrichment for my career's focus. And even then, I would say I wouldn't be done with that enrichment work. I would want to continue beyond that. So we want to build future learners, and we want to build lifelong learners. And we felt that the 1, 2, 3, The 3 being that that end goal for the outcome, with the idea that the path continues. I showed that picture of a walking path earlier, because the learning path doesn't end. You continue to walk down the learning path for as long as you want to walk down that learning path, and there shouldn't be an end in sight to learning. So we hope that we hope that answered those questions that we had in the little question box here. So a few other questions that we had in the box. One pertaining to report cards. My understanding is that last year we moved towards providing a digital access to the report cards through Skyward. So report cards are available through Skyward. They will become available at the end of the term, and they will continue to be available past the end of the term. I know that some individuals do prefer a paper copy, and one of the things that we do is work with families in extreme situations who might really want a paper copy. Miss Armenta in the office will work with the family and make sure that they obtain a paper copy. But do know that if you haven't logged into Skyward yet, you received an email with credentials earlier in the year, and we are happy to provide them through the office. Reach out to myself, reach out to Ms. Armenta, and we are happy to provide those credentials so that you can track your students' not only grades, but their attendance, and so much great information through Skyward. So another question that we received was, what if a student doesn't get a 3? Do they not pass? It's an indication of where they are along the learning continuum. We do not retain students, so they will pass. But one of the things that now our staff will know is where they were at the end of the year, so that they can continue to grow students. So rather than seeing that they received just a failing grade, now they know, since the standards are cyclical and they continue to be built upon, they know where they can continue to grow students. I clicked on the wrong button there. Other questions that we are receiving, we received one specific to PE health curricula. Our PE health curricula will continue to include a unit on puberty. We do work with the Robert Crown Institute to deliver that curricula, and we have in the past, and we will continue to do so this year and in the future. We've allowed an opt-out option. So do know that we will be covering, and we're happy to answer any specific questions that you might have regarding what that will look like, but it will look similar to the past, in that we will continue to collaborate with our outside resources, and we will allow parents to continue to select to opt out. Other questions that we receive, would we expect grades to be updated more timely? Is essentially the gist of this question. Will they be updated more timely? Will it be easy to cross-check the different skills, or will it be several pages for every subject? The grade report will be, it won't get in length of 20 to 30 pages. That is a great concern and a great question. They will be outcome based, so we won't have the components in the grade on the grade report that prints. We'll have the outcomes on the grade report that prints. So you will be able to cross-reference if the report were to cut off the entire text of the outcome. You'd be able to cross-reference the number that's listed with our written curricula, and you'd be able to get the detailed view of what that outcome was. So I know for our parents that are busy, this might be a lot to manage, but one of the things that you'll come accustomed to seeing is that the same standards will always print, the same outcomes will always print each trimester. So you will see recurring outcomes that you're looking for growth towards. And then other questions that we had, I know there was a question about how this will affect high school grades and enrollment. I know Sean talked a little bit about this in his slides. Sean, is there anything that you wanted to add to how all of this work will affect high school grades and enrollment?
Sure. I would just add that, we have room for everyone in high school, and we're going to try and ensure that we challenge students at the appropriate and highest level possible. And so if there's any concern about, well, if my student has a 3, what will that mean for their ability to take AP World History, for example, as a freshman? The answer is, if your child has done well and that's what they want to take, then we're going to support your child in that endeavor. And so we are really pivoting away, to the best of our ability, from standardized test scores, for example, a MAP score, dictating where we might place a student. And in fact, we are pivoting away from some of our own leveling within the high school curriculum to ensure that everyone has opportunity and access to the things that they find most interesting and in ways they want to be challenged. And we do that in concert with the families as they choose courses rising to 9th grade. And so, if you have a concern about, well, my child only got a 3, is there a way they can get a 4 to show them, show the high school how great they are and how well they do in a particular subject area? We don't need that. We're going to trust you and to know your child best. And it's our job to support your child the best that we can to help them achieve their goals. I did I did hear about, well, what if my child only has a 2? That's great information for the high school to have, particularly within what standards maybe they need some more support, because now our teachers know how to specifically support that student, as opposed to, well, the student has a 65, but I don't know where that student really needs help other than the fact that they had the equivalent of a D. And so just to reiterate, there's a lot contained in standards-based grading that can help us better serve each individual student's needs. And so I can't tell you enough how much in support we are. And my own children in the district that I live in have standards-based grading. And I can honestly say that I know better than I ever have about where they stand and what they do well and where they need support.
Thank you, Sean. One of the questions that we received relates to IEP and 504 standards. Ms. Schmeiser, I'm going to have you take over that question.
Yes, thank you, Alia. So I just wanted to unpack this because there was a lot of pieces to this question. So our IEP students held to the same standards. We are always trying to make sure that our kiddos are reaching and exposed to that content wherever they are able to meet that that goal is wonderful. Our goal is just to make sure that we're providing them the opportunity to be exposed to that content, that grade level content, and then see how it's going to work for them. So again, this is going to be really individualized because of just the nature of what an IEP is. But we always try to make sure that kiddos are exposed to that. Now, if they are held to the same standard, I think it definitely depends on what the IEP states, how it's written. And again, this is something that is written in collaboration with the family. So if we have a kiddo who is performing at maybe a 3rd grade level and they're in 8th grade, we are going to make sure that we are helping that child be exposed to that content, that 8th grade content, in the way that we feel is appropriate for them and what would meet their need. But that's one instance. Another one could be that there's a kiddo that is in 3rd grade and is doing well in that 3rd grade content area. And the goal might be just making sure that the accommodations are in place so that they're accessing the content and the curriculum in a way that works for them. It says, won't many of these students never attain whatever is the higher passing standard of each grade level? So the whole thing behind why we have the IEP, right, is that we want to make sure that we are addressing and meeting the student where they're at. That's why it's individualized. That's why it's really important that we have data, benchmark data, assessment data that is driving the decisions behind what the team is stating. Because sure, there are kiddos that may not be meeting the same goals as other grade level peers. But if it's not appropriate for what they need to be doing, then we want to make sure that we have a goal that's specific and individualized for them. If they are assessed in a different way, that's listed in the IEP actually. So for kiddos that have an IEP, there's a piece in the document, the IEP document, for accommodations. So under accommodations, it's always discussed at the IEP team, at the annual review, at the eligibility, whatever the meeting is with the IEP team. And the team collectively agrees on what is the most appropriate way to grade and provide feedback for the student. So for many of our students actually that have IEPs, they may not be graded with using a report card. They may be just getting feedback from their IEP goal updates or having feedback from conferences with parents and families. But all of that is listed in their IEP under that accommodations section. And so does that affect the fidelity of standards-based grading? Not at all. I think that what it does is it pushes our team to make sure that we are making connections between where the student is performing with whatever that grade level content is and finding that carryover. If there's any other questions specifically about the IEP kiddos and how they are graded or feedback, I just said, please reach out to me because I can connect with you and talk you through any of that.
Thank you. And Dr. Kopta, I'm going to have you take that last question about standards-based grading in schools in Illinois.
Sure. So the last question we have is this system for all Illinois schools, including CPS? So as I stated before, we went on this journey to figure out what method was going to work best for Pennoyer to write curriculum, validate curriculum, assess curriculum. And Illinois does not have one standard or one way to do that. We are expected in Illinois, all public schools in Illinois are expected to follow the Common Core standards, but how we follow them, when we follow them, what resources we use, how we write or obtain curriculum, it is totally up to each individual school district. So we are at such an advantage as a small school district because we're able to work and collaborate closely together, write that curriculum, see it firsthand being taught in our classrooms, being able to take that student data, assess to make sure that we're teaching with rigor. So we're very fortunate. Larger school districts, sometimes that takes many years. They're piloting different resources in different schools. They're looking at different data. They might have different demographics between their individual schools. So in Illinois, we get to choose how we want to do it, with the overlying expectation is that we're following the standards. And the way that the state really assesses that is through the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. Now, unfortunately, that's a pretty new test that we only had 2 years of doing that test. It replaced the ISAT test. And then, of course, last year with the pandemic, we didn't take it at all. And we will see if we take it this year. So everything's up in the air, but you can look at that. That's on the, we have assessment data from the last time we took that, which was in 2019. And we exceeded our state standards in both math and reading, which are the 2 areas that they assess on the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. And then they also have a science assessment that all 5th and 8th graders take, and we well exceeded the state standard on that too. And we have all that information on our website. And it's also on the Illinois Interactive Report Card. So every school district does it differently. Sometimes it's great to have that autonomy. Other times it's difficult to kind of get your footing. So I feel like Pennoyer is in a really great place. And I'm really proud of the work that our teachers and administrators have done. And of course, our students, they always rise to the occasion, and we are so proud of them as well. So without any further questions, we really thank you for your time tonight. It seems really impersonal to do this format. I think we're going to be in a virtual world for a while, but we hope to keep having these curriculum conversations because it's really what drives teaching and learning. You have to have a really good, strong base curriculum before you can do anything else. And as I've said, I'm really proud of the work we've done over the past 4 years and really feel like we're moving to a really great direction with that.
Thank you, Dr. Kapta. Thank you, families, for joining us. Make sure to look for the recording. Have a great night.